The Brown family saga had seen its fair share of scandals, accusations, and broken promises, but no moment hit the public harder than when Christine Brown clapped back at one of Kody's most bizarre and arrogant claims yet, that he was too famous for real love. What began as an offhand comment during a behind-the-scenes interview quickly escalated into a storm of backlash, social media fury, and Christine's most cutting and liberating response to date. Fans would remember this as the day Christine drew a permanent line in the sand, not just between herself and Kody, but between his delusions and reality itself. Kody's outlandish declaration. It all began with what was supposed to be a casual filming day for season 19 of Sister Wives. Cameras rolled in Flagstaff as Kody, sitting stiff in his chair, leaned forward and made a statement that even the producers struggled to process. "I can't just fall in love like regular people anymore," he boasted, hands gesturing wide as though he were addressing a stadium. "I'm too famous now. Everyone who comes near me has an agenda. I'm a public figure. Real love, it doesn't exist for someone like me." The room went silent. The crew members exchanged knowing glances, but no one dared to challenge him, except for Christine, who happened to be sitting just across the living room. She had been asked to join this segment to reflect on her post-divorce life. But suddenly, the spotlight wasn't on her at all. It was on Kody in full self-importance mode. Christine's jaw tightened. She thought about the years she had spent craving affection that never came. She thought about the endless excuses he used to justify his favoritism, his absence, and his neglect. And now, here he was, dismissing love itself because he considered himself too famous. It was a new low. Christine's silence breaks. Later that evening, Christine took to her Instagram Live, something she rarely did without a plan. Sitting in her Utah kitchen with a cup of tea, she leaned into the camera and, for the first time, let her unfiltered truth spill. "I wasn't going to say anything, but I can't sit by and let him rewrite reality again. Kody isn't too famous for real love, he's too selfish for it." The comments section exploded instantly. Hearts and fire emojis flooded the screen, fans cheering her bravery. Christine continued, her voice unwavering. "I know what it's like to live without love. I lived that way for years, waiting for crumbs of attention that never came. And let me tell you something. Love isn't about status or fame or how many people recognize your face. Love is about showing up. Love is about sacrifice, kindness, and presence. And Kody didn't fail me because of fame. He failed me because he chose not to love." It was the verbal knockout blow fans had been waiting for. The public reaction. By the next morning, Christine's words had gone viral. Entertainment sites blasted headlines. "Christine Brown shuts down Kody's fame fantasy." "Christine speaks truth. Kody too selfish, not too famous." Fans applaud Christine's brutal honesty. Twitter was merciless. Memes of Kody with sunglasses and celebrity bodyguards circulated. One fan joked, "Too famous for love? Bro, you can't even get your kids to text you back." Another wrote, "Christine is the real star. Kody's just the villain in her success story." Meanwhile, Robyn, the last remaining wife still legally bound to Kody, stayed eerily quiet. Rumors swirled that she was mortified by his comments, but unwilling to challenge him publicly. TLC insiders whispered that producers were giddy. Christine's fiery clapback had created the perfect storm of drama to fuel the upcoming season. Kody strikes back. Of course, Kody couldn't let it go. Within days, he arranged a sit-down interview with a podcast that often gave him sympathetic airtime. Wearing his signature leather jacket and defensive smirk, he tried to reframe the narrative. "Christine's twisting my words," he insisted. "I was talking about how hard it is for me, as someone in the spotlight, to trust people. Everyone's got a motive when they approach me. I was being vulnerable, and she's turning it into an attack." But his words rang hollow. Listeners weren't buying it. Even the host pressed him. "But isn't love supposed to be unconditional? If fame is the reason, how do you explain the wives you've already lost?" Kody bristled. They couldn't handle the lifestyle, he snapped. It wasn't me, it was them. That single sentence undid any chance of sympathy. Fans heard what Christine had been saying for years. In Kody's world, accountability didn't exist. Christine's final word. Christine refused to let his backpedaling stand. On her cooking show a week later, she addressed the issue again, this time with humor. As she whisked together batter for a family recipe, she laughed into the camera. I keep hearing that love doesn't work when you're too famous. Well, I guess I must not be famous enough because I found real love with David. Real love shows up to family dinners. Real love helps with the dishes. Real love doesn't need a camera crew to feel important. The audience roared with laughter, and Christine's playful jab was shared across every platform. What made it sting even more for Kody was how effortlessly she made her point while glowing with happiness in her new life. The fan divide. Though the majority cheered Christine, a small fraction of Kody loyalists emerged, defending him as misunderstood. They argued that fame does complicate relationships, that he was being honest about his struggles. But even within that camp, cracks formed. One former fan group administrator posted, "I supported Kody for years, but watching Christine speak her truth, I realized she gave her all and got nothing in return. Fame isn't the problem. Ego is." The shift was undeniable. Christine wasn't just winning sympathy, she was winning loyalty. TLC executives noted the metrics. Every time Christine spoke, engagement skyrocketed. Every time Kody spoke, viewers tuned in only to mock him. Robyn's breaking point. Behind closed doors, Robyn was unraveling. She had defended Kody for years, but this new wave of criticism threatened to drown them both. Friends close to her revealed that she begged Kody to stop talking to the media, warning him that every word he spoke only made things worse. But Kody refused. He saw himself as the misunderstood patriarch, determined to reclaim his narrative. And in doing so, he pushed Robyn further into isolation. Rumors swirled that Robyn had privately admitted to friends that Christine was right, that Kody's arrogance was out of control. But publicly, she remained silent, her absence from social media more noticeable than ever. Christine's triumph. The feud culminated months later when Christine was invited to a women's empowerment conference as a keynote speaker. Standing before a packed auditorium, she shared her journey with raw honesty. "I thought love was supposed to be complicated. I thought if I worked harder, sacrificed more, I could make it work. But love isn't about begging someone to see your worth. Love is about standing tall in your truth and finding someone who sees you exactly as you are." The audience erupted in applause, many wiping tears from their eyes. For Christine, this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming her narrative and inspiring others to walk away from relationships that diminish them. Kody left behind. Meanwhile, back in Flagstaff, Kody's world grew smaller. His claims of fame now seemed more like delusions than reality. Without Christine, Janelle, or Mary, his once sprawling family empire was reduced to a shadow of itself. Neighbors whispered that he rarely left the house. Paparazzi who once swarmed him no longer bothered him. The man who declared himself too famous for real love now sat alone, watching reruns of the show that made him known, realizing too late that it wasn't his fame that had cost him everything. It was his pride. Christine's legacy. In the end, Christine's clapback wasn't about shutting down Kody's ridiculous claim. It was about sending a message to every woman who had ever been told they weren't enough. Her story became a beacon, proof that walking away from arrogance, neglect, and manipulation wasn't just possible, it was powerful. She had found love, joy, and purpose beyond the shadow of Kody Brown. And that's for Kody. His declaration of being too famous for real love became a running joke among fans, a meme that would haunt him for years. Christine, on the other hand, had something better than fame. She had freedom. The drama surrounding sister wives had always been layered with jealousy, shifting loyalties, and heartbreak. But nothing could have prepared fans for the day Christine Brown turned Kody's most arrogant claim into ashes. In what became the most talked about clapback of the season, Christine dismantled Kody's bizarre assertion that he was too famous to ever experience genuine love again. This wasn't just about a quip on television. It was about truth, liberation, and exposing the cracks in a man who had built his world on control and ego. Kody's claim that sparked it all. The cameras had barely started rolling when Kody leaned forward, his face a mask of pride and wariness. In a confessional for Sister Wife Season 19, he declared, "I can't do relationships like ordinary people anymore. I'm too famous now. Anyone who gets close to me, well, they want the fame, the cameras, or the attention. Real love isn't possible for someone in my position." The crew froze. It wasn't the first time Kody had made grandiose statements, but this one hit differently. The man who had driven away 3 wives now wanted to blame celebrity status for his failures in love. To him, fame was the obstacle, not years of neglect, favoritism, and broken promises. Christine, sitting on the opposite couch during group filming, felt her pulse quicken. She had heard excuses from him before, but this was the most insulting. She bit her tongue at that moment, knowing the cameras would capture her reaction later. But inside, something snapped. Christine's boiling point. That night, back in her Utah home, Christine opened her phone and watched fan chatter explode online. Viewers couldn't believe Kody's statement. Some mocked him, some pitied him, but most of them knew who had the authority to respond. Christine. And she did. The next day, Christine went live on Instagram, sitting comfortably in her kitchen with a mug of tea. She looked calm but determined. Her voice carried the weight of years unspoken. "Kody says he's too famous for real love," she began, her lips pressing into a firm line. "Let me make one thing clear. Fame has nothing to do with it. Selfishness does." Fans erupted in the comments, typing furiously, "Yes, Queen," and "Christine speaking facts." Christine continued, "I know what it feels like to be unloved in a marriage. I lived it for years, not because of fame, but because he chose not to love. Love isn't about being on TV. Love is about kindness, sacrifice, and being present. And if he didn't give that to me, it wasn't because he was famous, it was because he didn't want to." Her words cut like a blade. Fans react. Within hours, Christine's video trended across platforms. TikTok edits of her statements circulated. Twitter became merciless with memes. A photo of Kody looking serious with the caption, "Too famous to love, but not famous enough for his kids to call back." Another with Christine smiling beside David Woolley. "This is what real love looks like. No fame required." News outlets quickly picked up the story. Headlines read, "Christine Brown shuts down Kody's fame excuse. Fans applaud brutal honesty." Kody's fame fantasy destroyed by ex-wife Christine. The more Christine spoke her truth, the brighter she shined. And the more Kody dug into excuses, the smaller he seemed. Kody's damage control. True to form, Kody couldn't stay quiet. Days later, he appeared on a sympathetic podcast trying to spin his words. "I was vulnerable," he said defensively. "People twisted my meaning. What I meant was, when you're in the public eye, you can't trust people. Everyone wants something from you. It makes finding love impossible." The host raised an eyebrow. "But don't you think your wives left because of how you treated them, not because of fame?" Kody stiffened. "They couldn't handle the lifestyle," he replied sharply. "It wasn't me, it was them." That single sentence destroyed what little credibility he had left. Fans flooded the podcast comments with laughter and outrage. "Deflection is his superpower," one wrote. Another said, "Kody thinks he's a celebrity. Meanwhile, Christine is the real star." Christine doubles down. Words continued to spin their yarn. Christine Brown continued to poke holes in Kody's wild claims. You know, I keep hearing this idea that love can't survive fame, she chuckled. But I guess I'm not famous enough because I've found real love. Real love helps clean the kitchen. Real love laughs with you when you burn the toast. Real love doesn't need a spotlight. Fans roared in laughter, sharing the clip everywhere. Christine had turned Kody's self-importance into a joke, and the world laughed with her. The divide in the family. Behind the scenes, the fallout reached the rest of the Brown family. Janelle privately messaged Christine to say, "I'm so glad you said what needed to be said. He'll never admit the truth, but you exposed it." Mary, still grappling with her own independence, quietly liked several fan posts supporting Christine. Robyn, however, was left in an impossible position. Rumors spread that she begged Kody to stop talking about fame and love, warning him that every word was destroying what little credibility they had left. But Kody didn't listen. He was convinced Christine was jealous of him. In reality, Christine was flourishing. Christine's public triumph. Christine's influence grew beyond the show. She was invited to a women's empowerment conference where she gave a keynote speech that would cement her as more than just a reality star. "I thought if I sacrificed enough, if I tried harder, if I gave more, I would finally earn love," she said, her voice steady but emotional. But real love doesn't need to be earned. Real love shows up. Real love builds you, not breaks you. And no amount of fame or excuses can hide when love is missing. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Social media was filled with clips of her speech, and Christine became a trending name once again. Kody's world shrinks. Meanwhile, Kody's empire crumbled. The man who once juggled 4 wives now sat in a Flagstaff home alone with Robyn, his ego bruised and his image battered. Neighbors whispered he rarely left the house anymore. Paparazzi, once eager to snap photos of the Brown family, had moved on. The irony was cruel. The man who claimed he was too famous for real love now seemed forgotten by fame itself. Robyn's quiet breaking point. Robyn, who had once defended Kody at every turn, reportedly began to feel the weight of his arrogance. According to whispers among insiders, she admitted privately to friends that Christine had been right, but publicly she stayed silent. Social media noticed her absence. Fans speculated that she was caught between loyalty to her husband and the painful truth that Christine's words had laid bare. Christine's legacy. The showdown between Christine and Kody became more than just another Brown family fight. It became symbolic. Christine wasn't just shutting down an arrogant claim. She was speaking for every woman who had ever been told love was conditional, that their worth depended on sacrifice, or that they had to stay small so someone else could shine. She proved that true love wasn't about fame or attention, but about authenticity, respect, and presence. Kody's words may have tried to diminish her, but Christine's clapback turned into her crown. The day Christine destroyed Kody's claim of being too famous for real love was the day the power dynamic in the Brown family shifted forever. No longer the silenced wife waiting for scraps of affection, Christine stood tall as a woman who had reclaimed her narrative. She had love, she had joy, and most importantly, she had the truth on her side. And as for Kody, his claim became a meme, a punchline, a reminder that arrogance can build walls, but truth, courage, and self-respect will always tear them down.